Welcome back. Well, let's continue the discussion of Nigeria's 26-year democratic journey. I'm joined by another political affairs analyst and lawyer, Adewale Ajadi. Welcome to the program, Mr. Ajadi. It's been 26 years of democratic rule in Nigeria. How would you rate the journey so far?
It's a very interesting journey. I mean, there is no perfect democracy, as we're seeing in America and across the world. There is no democracy that automatically lands on its feet and is perfect at all times. So the times determines the patterns of behavior. The Nigerian process has to start with looking at the electorate. And if you look at the figures, I think I'm right in saying that voter, there's an incredible voter apathy. The last time we had elections, presidential elections, there are 93 million registered voters and just above 25 million voted. That is a very low rate. It's a very, very low rate. And that means that not only is representation actually dodgy at the moment, but participation is extremely low as well. That gives our democracy a very, very serious problem. Because when people don't participate and take ownership of the democratic process, then there's really nothing to say about accountability, about the development of policy to represent the people's interest, about the concerns of the people to guide government. But this is not a blame laying process. This has been happening for some time. Part of our problem often is that we look at our democracy as being something that has to be judged by the individuals that we elect. And that's not really true. What we should be focusing on is, do we have a system that is robust enough to weather the highs and the lows of the times that we get into? Do we have a robust enough process to maintain the interest of the people to go and vote and actually hold hope that next time things might change if they didn't get it right this time? And part of that is another level of participation. That post elections, we don't have great participation. So we have some participation in elections, but we don't have post-election participation. The elites have a complete capture of the Nigerian state, whether on state level or on federal level. So there's a complete capture of the instruments of governance. And the people see themselves as mostly victims of the system of governance. We have to improve our system of governance so that our people have ownership of it. Our young people feel that this is their system, and politicians feel that they're there to serve the people who put them there. And then there's another dimension of that, which is that unfortunately, the way our system operates, the three most dominant ethnic groups, within Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, actually ignore the fact that we have over 371 different ethnic groups in Nigeria. And there's very little engagement to make sure that those people are included in all the dimensions of how we govern ourselves and how we run the Nigerian state. And the final, perhaps the most important point, is the abysmal way in which we treat women in our politics and our democracy. Women are taxpayers. They are about 50%, 49.5% of the population. Everything we do is misogynistic, from the way we treat them when they complain to the way we put them in roles in government. For example, there is no justification why we have never had a female vice president. There's no justification why we have never had a female head of Senate. And there's no justification why every time we get women into roles, we quickly hold them to account that we don't hold men to account for. So we are in a process where we can greatly improve our democracy. And those things I count as areas where, to me, it's critical for us to improve it.
Of course, there have been challenges through it all, as you have mentioned. Now, what are the issues, affecting Nigeria's democracy, and how do you think that these issues can be addressed and eventually solved?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I apologize for the background noise. We are currently doing our top of the hour news. But I'll stay and go on with the next question. So, what are the issues affecting Nigeria's democracy and how can they be solved?
Well, I've mentioned all of them, I think, that I know of, but I would go on one that I'm very passionate about, which is the treatment of women in Nigerian democracy. You see, we have had men run things basically since independence. And it's arguable whether we have actually reached a pass mark since we've been running things. If 49.5% of Nigerians are women, why haven't we tried women? We don't even allow for their representation in their numbers in our legislature. So the challenge for us is to upgrade and improve the quality and the representation of women in our democracy. That means that we use the spectrum of our capacity, not just one side being men, but use the other spectrum of our capacity. I'm not saying that all women are saints and women will have to be saints to be in government, but I'm saying that I'd rather have a split of male-female villains than have an all-male villainry. So the issue of getting women into our politics, making sure they represent us, helps for us to build a future where when young people come in, they know that we are really trying our best to use all the capacity that we have in the country. Right now, we're not. The second thing that is very clear is that we have to make sure that people participate post-elections. We complain about money being decisive in getting voters to go and vote one way or the other. To change that, let people be involved in the local government. Let them be participants in all parts of government, not just spectators until the next elections. Now, if they are active in every aspect of our lives, then it will not be a big deal for them to go and vote. But if voting is just an event, not a process, then it's not shocking that voter apathy has such a devastating effect on the health of our democracy.
The APC-led government, has been in power since 2015. So far, how impactful would you say this administration has been on the nation's democracy?
I'm not sure that being partisan helps anything, so I'm not going to be partisan. I'm not going to look at APC as a party. I'm not going to give a score mark to APC or PDP. I think that the issue has to be that we have a healthy enough democracy for us to agree to disagree. We need a strong opposition, and we also need a strong ruling party. We need capacity across the board. We also need for them to collaborate where it is necessary and challenge each other where it is important. The problem now is that it's a winner-take-all system. Whoever wins tries to make sure that all they do is keep on winning. And the greatest losers are Nigerians. If Nigerians are being put first and service to them is more important than anything else, then we'll find capacity wherever we can in our country to make sure they get the benefits that they need to be effective. So my own thing is we have to function better. We have to move away from a toxic politics where the opposition is your enemy to a politics where what we are looking for is the greatest capacity to make life better for our people.
Let's now talk about the revelation by former military head of state Ibrahim Babangida in his book, A Journey in Service, where he said that late MKO Abiola, who symbolizes the declaration of June 12 as Democracy Day, actually won the controversial presidential election back in 1993. Now, do you think that if things hadn't happened or turned out the way they did, that's the nullification of that election, Abiola's presidency would have made a difference in the nation's trajectory?
Well, that's for people who have time for such things. We have a great future ahead of us. The past is done. We can't go and redo that election. Whatever he did, he did. He knows he did, and people thought he did. So the discussion about him, I suppose, when you're retired, you start to find relevance. This is relevant to the future of Nigeria. What matters now is what are we going to do in the future? How are we going to create a country whereby our people are inspired to work together across ethnicity, across different areas of religion, across different perspectives to build a great nation? How are we going to make sure that the demographic change that is coming to Africa is considered in how we develop ourselves and how we engage ourselves? How are we going to make our country sure that when a girl child is born, we know that she will fulfill her potential just like a boy child would? How are we going to make sure that the next generation of Nigerians are world beaters? They make sure that this country is one that we are proud of in the way that we have not made it so far. Those are the things that matter. Whether Abiola could have done better or not, it's a shame that he had an untimely death. It's a shame that we didn't get his presidency in place, but it is done with. What we have to now do is look at the future. June 12th, whatever anybody says, has given us the foundation for this what we call the Third Republic, the democracy we have. It's not certain whether if we had done democracy at that time, we would not have had a coup after. So let's be clear. We've had 26 years, and hopefully we'll have many more years where we would solve our problems with debate, disagreements, and not resort to force of arms to maintain the political direction of our country, where our people would have a voice to speak to us and determine who should be the leader of our country. However imperfect it is, it's a system that will continue to give us the chance to make change and make improvement. And I think unfortunate death of MKO Abiola gave us the foundation to be where we are at the moment. And I won't go back to legislate or discuss what happened then.
And there's a vital question that, that runs through, that dominates discussions. Would you say Tinubu's renewed hope agenda has lived up to MKO Abiola's Hope 1993 agenda? Are you confident that he can deliver on that renewed hope agenda to truly reflect on the lives of the ordinary Nigerian?
Well, there's still a lot of time to see what happens. But this is not an exam. Life is not an exam paper. It's a lot more complex than that. The government has chosen fiscal discipline as the foundation of what it's trying to do. And it takes time for that to translate, firstly, into productivity on the ground and returns for the people who are working. It's economically reasonable. It is something that we might find as most useful. But there's another agenda that the government has to consider. Firstly, that we're going to have an unprecedented number of young people. And that unprecedented number of young people want instant gratification. And that's not going to be based on material accumulation, but on helping them to understand how they can add value to the future of our country. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on that. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on the ability of Nigerians to have a better way of relating to each other, rather than solving communal problems with violence. And like I said earlier on, there's a greater and most majestic problem of making sure our girl children have the same life opportunities that everybody else has in Nigeria. Those things are frontal issues that need to be addressed. We don't necessarily have to be a rich country, not in terms of GDP or anything else, but we need to be a caring country that looks after each other. We need to build a community of interest amongst each other. We need to be people who share love for our country and love for our families and our communities. And it doesn't matter whether we're rich or not, but we're creating a space where we're able to look after each other. If that happens, we're better off. But if we are going to have a few extremely rich people and a lot of extremely poor people because we have fiscal accountability and all of that, then we're in grave danger. So we need to be able to move our country speedily to a space whereby everybody sees themselves in the greatness that we see for our country. And then we can start speaking that everything that is designed has worked. But it's still early days. We're still 2 years into its first term, and it's going to take time for those things to impact and have outcomes. So I don't know. I know that this is painful for a lot of us. But that pain is not, as people make out, that is because of the last government. That pain is because the world is in pain. The COVID effect on the economy is rarely ever pronounced as a profound thing, but it was profound, and it still is profound. And I am speaking to you from another continent, and I can tell you that everywhere in the world, people are feeling the pain and the pinch. So it's not one administration after the other, this and that, and we love apportioning blame and finding who's at fault. That's not what's in here. We need to recognize that there is a challenge to create an economy that is inclusive. The Americans have chosen an economy that is exclusive, where the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. We can't have that. And we have to, I overstep this, but I'm going to speak to it, that we all have to the government has to get with the program of decolonizing our economy, making sure we're not so reliant on these Western powers and their interest, making sure we're not so dependent on foreign direct investment. Those who steal money from Nigeria and take it abroad, they're stupid. There's the largest market possible in Nigeria. So if you steal money, why don't you invest in your people? Well, because you want to get away with it? And one question we never ask ourselves, how many of the people who had money decades ago, do their children have money now? So you steal money, what does it change for your children? We need to work on systems that work for all of us, not just the benefits a few people. And if the government manages to do this fiscal responsibility and it connects with the advantage for everybody, that makes our economy more inclusive and makes all of us find something, or not necessarily all of us, but most of us find something worthwhile to make of our lives, then we would have made a fundamental progress. And I hope that that's the direction that these policies are taking us.
Before we round up now, 2 years into Tinubu's government, and he has been endorsed by governors of the APC for a second term, which of course is not surprising. But are you convinced of his efforts to put Nigeria on the path to progress? Judging from his reforms.
Well, yeah, I'm convinced of that, and I'm convinced that he wants things to work. Why am I convinced of that? Because being a president of Nigeria is not just a title; it's grinding work, and we are one of the most critical people of anybody who's been in government. So if you choose to go for that office, you must want something. You must want to build the legacy. So I think he wants it to work. Will it work? That's not entirely up to him, and it's not entirely up to us. There are circumstances and contexts that always change. So it's not entirely up to all of us, but we hope it does. The second thing is that awarding pass mark for the past 2 years, I don't know that works, but I certainly can tell you that freeing up, moving the fiscal policy in the direction that is done seems to make sense economically when you look at classical economics theory and how it's set up. But I don't just look at that. I look at the consequences and the impact on people. And the impact is really, really challenging at the moment. But there are prospects that if this translates into common people being able to be productive, if it translates into young people getting jobs and opportunities to start businesses, if it translates into our farmers really genuinely becoming great producers of what we eat and what we export, if it means that our raw materials, whether they be minerals and others, are processed on our land and added value to so that we compete on value. If it means that with our neighbors we are trading and we are on safe ground, if it means that our communities are no longer fighting each other, if it means our police are equipped to fight crime and soldiers are not brought in to do policing action, if it means our soldiers are capable of protecting our borders from incursions from those who come into our country and foment trouble, if it means that our women are exalted and partners in our progress, then it would have done spectacularly well. And I hope for all of us that that's the result that we get.
Well, no doubt a reflection on the nation's present situation. Despite the adoption of democracy 26 years ago, calls to question certain issues challenging democratic governance in Nigeria. A lot more needs to be addressed, like you've said. Mr. Adewale Ajadi, it's been great having this discussion with you. Thank you for talking to us. And that's it on this episode of the program. Many thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time.